Hello, welcome back. I'm Reverend Tomas, and you're watching A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. So I want to welcome you, whether you're joining me from my own YouTube channel or from Enlightened World Network. For those of you who have tuned in recently, and there are quite a number of you. So number one, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for tuning into these videos. I'm really happy that you're finding some value in these. And my hope is that if you're finding value in these, that you'll go back and watch them more than once. And then my hope after that is that you'll begin to put these ideas into practice in your life. That's what I would like the most, is for you to experience the peace of God. What else? What else is there? In fact, that is the subject of today's video. We're on lesson 20 in the manual for teachers. Really, it's a question. Question 20, well, what is the peace of God? What is the peace of God? If you've done the workbook, or if you're going through the workbook, if you're just starting the workbook out, I'll play a little bit of spoiler for you and say that the workbook for students in A Course in Miracles really emphasizes that we can and should want the peace of God. In fact, that is one of the workbook lessons. I want the peace of God. What else is there? What else is there? Now, where we go astray is wanting other things. As we think in addition to that, or in place of that, what we're encouraged to do in this course is to want only the peace of God. And we do see what we want to see. If you want only the peace of God, guess what you experience? Yeah. So in describing and talking about the peace of God, let's just state up front that it is beyond words. The peace of God is beyond all forms, all bodies, all words, all thoughts, even all concepts. Therefore, when people say that words can't describe it, that's absolutely right. They can't. However, this peace, being who we are, can be experienced even here in the world where we're running amok. We've got wars, we've got battles, we've got political battles, we've got people defining and defending personal territory. And again, as always, like dogs, really, you build a fence around yourself and defend it. It's no different than placing a dog in a yard. Anything that approaches will be barked at. Really, same thing. Truly. What's really cool for us is it doesn't have to be that way. The peace of God lies beyond words. However, it can be experienced even here when we're running amok, even here in the world. Where else are we going to experience it? Because this is where we believe we find ourselves. So how do we get out? Well, this is something that can be experienced. And in describing this, Jesus posits some questions. I'll read here verbatim the very first paragraph. It's quite short, and then we'll go from there. So it has been said that there is a kind of peace that is not of this world, the peace of God. How is it recognized? How is it found? And being found, how can it be retained? Let us consider each of these questions separately, which we'll do. For each reflects a different step along the way. Okay. How do we recognize the peace of God? Well, to say that you know it when you see it and experience it is simple sounding, but that's what it is. It's a peace that's not of this world. It's timeless. It's beyond everything that we've experienced here in the world. It's outside of our conventions of space, outside of our conventions of time. It's outside of everything that our biology textbooks tell us that we are. It's outside of all of that. How is it found? Well, it's found in quiet. The peace of God is an undescribable stillness that extends all over. It covers everything. There is nothing else. All of the psychodrama that we indulge in simply is gone. How do we find it? In quiet. When we are running around enraged, we cannot find the peace of God, can we? Think of your own life. When you're anxious or depressed, overwhelmed, wearing the cultural badge of honor of overwhelmment, overwork, stress, running so fast. Yeah, y'all know I'm talking to you here. Hyperactivity, excess activity, feeling attacked, feeling not good enough, right? It's not possible to experience the peace of God in that condition. Anytime we identify with the ego, we block this peace. Why? It's the defining and defending of personal territory. We define ourselves artificially as a certain thing, as a human being, as a middle-aged man, a middle-aged woman, right? As an elderly man, an elderly woman, affiliate with a political party, right? A location, maybe an ethnic group, a nationality, maybe it's our own sexual orientation, whatever label we affix to ourselves, we define, and then we feel attacked. We feel that everyone who is not us is out to get us, even if we don't. Right? Any time that you catch yourself defining yourself, it is in fact a limitation, isn't it? There are multiple limitations that we place on ourselves. In that condition, we can't experience the peace of God. Enter spiritual practice, where we learn to be in that quiet. Now, what will this look like for you? I don't know. Not everybody has to be as chill as the Dalai Lama. Comparative reality is just as dangerous here as it is anywhere else, because there actually is no separation of any kind. So who are you comparing yourself to? I mean, really, who are you comparing yourself to? There's no separation at all. So we have to attenuate ourselves to that. We have to get used to that idea. We train our mind. This is spiritual practice. Doesn't matter whether you follow A Course in Miracles or a different tradition or sets of different traditions. You could have a very, very mixed spirituality that incorporates elements from multiple traditions. Really, this is simply one presentation of what Jesus refers to as the universal course, which is truth. It's our own awakening. Spiritual practice aims to train our mind. Number one, we want the peace of God, and then we begin to meet its conditions. This is a very interesting and a very important point here in A Course in Miracles. The peace of God does not dawn on any mind that does not meet its conditions, which is peace itself. Enter the practice of forgiveness that is so central to A Course in Miracles. Forgiveness at the deepest level that this course talks about. Miracles extending love. This is a whole different set of videos for sure. This is how we learn to become more peaceful. We learn this in the world. How do we do it? We unlearn the psychodrama and the ego clinging. That's what's going on. We're leaving things to the side, not by force, mind you. That's attack. We don't make it real. We simply learn to forgive and leave it aside. Leave your ego clinging aside. Forgive the world. Forgive the ego itself. Forgive space, time, everything that you see, all phenomena, all people, including yourself. This is how it's found. And how can it be retained? The final question, once it is found. Well, you may discover here that you have a brilliant, wonderful, deep, and peaceful experience. Unlike any other, you may discover that you have the experience of the peace of God. And then what happens? Well, after that bliss, after that ecstasy, I mean, you name it, whatever you want to call it, after this experience happens and you go back out there into the world, let's say you turn on your social media feed, and here's a news article about political violence. And you become instantly angry and upset that one side of the equation could possibly think that they're so cool and so high and mighty as to believe this friggin' lie. Doesn't matter what side of the equation you're on. If you define and defend personal territory, you attack because you feel like you're going to be attacked. Let's keep this example of politics. Doesn't matter what your views are. It's the defining and defending personal territory, the anger that pulls us back here into the world of the ego. How do we retain the peace of God? Well, we first of all learn to recognize that we're carried away. Really important. This is a very, very important point on the entire spiritual path for all of us, is we don't know what we don't know. So if you're not aware, right, if you're not aware that you're carried off into ego clinging, into attack thoughts, into defining and defending personal territory, if you're not aware, how can you be expected to take corrective action? Give yourselves a break here, guys. If you're not aware, you're not aware. We learn to, through spiritual practice, what else? Become aware of this. Now, once we become aware, we apply what we can call an antidote. We apply tools that we may have in our so-called toolkit of practices. How about forgiveness? Yes, begin to forgive. Forgive the political dialogue. Both sides need forgiveness. They're both defining and defending personal territory. It doesn't matter if you agree with one of them or not. Doesn't. Forgive them all. Forgive all politics while you're at it. Forgive yourself for dreaming it, and join again with the Holy Spirit in peace. This is how you rediscover. You discover that you've veered away from the conditions, peace, for experiencing the peace of God. You return to that as quickly as you notice that you're carried away. This is, by the way, if you've practiced sitting meditation, if you're familiar with Buddhism or yoga or any spiritual philosophy that's based on an Eastern tradition, you'll know about the meditation instruction. Let's say you're focusing on your breath. We get distracted, right? Life is actually a living, breathing, waking meditation practice, and you could choose to see it this way. As a teaching device, I've personally found this very, very helpful, and I offer it to you in the hopes that this may help you as well. It's a living, breathing, waking meditation practice. We get distracted. We identify with a separate sense of self. We become angry. We become pissed off. Somebody triggers us. Happens. As soon as we notice we're carried away, we bring our attention back to love. We forgive. This is the same as in a formal sitting meditation practice where you're focusing on your breath one moment, paying attention to your in and out breath, as we're often instructed to do. Then all of a sudden you're thinking about that political article, aren't you? You're thinking about yesterday's sales meeting. You're thinking about how the dog is stuck in the bathroom and is pawing at the door, ready to get out. Or you're thinking about the time the dog went to the bathroom on the carpet and you had just awakened at 5:30 a.m. and without being aware of that, stepped in it. Or whatever. The mind just keeps active. When you notice yourself carried away by thoughts of the dog, going to the bathroom on the carpet, and you barefoot, of course, always barefoot, but stepping in it, you realize, okay, I'm carried away. Bring your attention back to the breath and just let the thought stream go. Just let the thought stream about the dog go. This is how we do it. This is what forgiveness does. It includes an element of release. We let it go. We do not vanquish the ego. That makes it real. It makes it a foe. We lay down our swords. In fact, Jesus even uses this language here in the manual. We lay down our sword and forgive. Again, and if we notice ourselves distracted again, we do it again. We return our awareness to the object of meditation. We return our awareness to the only thing that we want, the goal, the peace of God. That's how the peace of God is retained once found. And there's a very famous line here in this portion of the manual, and it's just says so much. A tranquil mind is not a little gift. If you think it's not important to be peaceful, think again. As peaceful as you can make it right now in the present moment, because I understand, I can hear the dialogue in many people's heads that, well, I'm really not in a peaceful situation right now. Maybe I'm going through a breakup. Yeah, I'm being laid off, or I'm having a conflict at work, or with my spouse, or my kids, my teenage kids are stressing me out, or something. Just make it as peaceful as you can right now, because right now is what we have to work with. A tranquil mind is not a little gift, not in any way. So, in summary, the peace of God is what our goal is and should be. It should be. We're invited to make this all we want, only that. We experience it then, even here in the world, by meeting its conditions of a tranquil mind, of peace. How do we get there? Practice forgiveness. And once we experience the peace of God and get carried away in the world again, how do we retain it? How do we return to it? Forgiveness. You see a theme here in A Course in Miracles, right? Forgiveness. So, as always, Jesus invites us to practice this. And this, I know I say this about every lesson that I record here, but this one is quite beautiful. It bears repetition, and it's worth going through these few paragraphs of commentary here that the manual offers us. It's quite beautiful, and it's quite packed with meaning. And if you take nothing away from this, let's just have this famous line from A Course in Miracles playing around in all of our heads. A tranquil mind is not a small gift, right? It really isn't. A tranquil mind is not a little gift. It's huge. All right. Think about it. But more than that, practice. Practice forgiveness. Yes. That above all else is what I invite you to do. So thank you as always for joining me. We'll keep going here in the manual. And yes, have a great day, everybody.